Wellness Wednesday. As you know, last week I shared a little bit more about my story as to why I became a chiropractor. But the other aspect of my business is that we also do holistic health care, and we work a lot on improving digestion as well as balancing hormones so that you can have, number one, regular periods that are not painful, that are not abnormal, but also if you're dealing with fertility issues, that really helps to resolve those in many cases in just a few short months. It's really frustrating to me when you have a problem going on and you go to your doctor's office. You don't really get answers. You don't really have anybody listen to you, and sometimes it's even implied that you're crazy a little bit if you feel like something's wrong and they can't find anything on lab work. So when we do functional or holistic medicine in our office, our focus is on finding the root cause. So what is not working properly? How do we support that organ? How do we support your body's healing process? And how do we get your body balanced again so that you, number one, know what's going on, but also have control over your health again and know what to do or what's really happening and what your body's trying to tell you. So I wanted to share part 2 of my story, which is a little bit more about why I'm so passionate to help people from a different standpoint. A lot of times when you go to your doctor's office, like I said, they may do lab work, they may give you a diagnosis, they may try medications, but sometimes we don't really want to be stuck on medications our whole entire life. We don't really want just another pill. We want to actually know what's going on and how do we fix it so we don't need to be on a medication or getting some type of procedure the rest of our life and actually have answers. So to tell you a little bit more about my story and why I'm so passionate, I think you need to understand why I'm here and why I'm so passionate about this. I started my cycle when I was about 12 years old, and I had a lot of issues from the beginning. I had very heavy cycles. I had a lot of cramping. I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of mood swings, headaches, all sorts of different things that were happening. And, initially I went to my mom and we ended up going to a gynecologist to get everything checked out, and pretty much was told, well, that's normal. That's normal to be in pain and really feel like you just have to stay in bed all day the first couple days of your cycle and feel like you're snapping at everybody and you don't feel like yourself. You feel like a completely different person. I was told that was normal, and I'm like, no, that can't be normal. It doesn't seem normal to me that I would be in this much pain and be relying on pain medication and Midol and heating pads and ice and still be miserable all day long and having so much pain that I literally felt like if I stabbed myself with a knife, it would be better. So I just really wasn't happy with my doctor, and what I was being told was normal and abnormal, but I didn't really know any better. I mean, I was 12 years old. So for years, I dealt with painful periods, with cramping, with taking medication, with taking Midol, and really not having any answers. Eventually, when my mom took me, the doctor had mentioned, well, we can put you on a birth control and that'll at least regulate your cycle so you know when they are and they'll be a little less heavy. Well, we tried the medication for about a year, and the birth control actually seemed to make my moods worse. And I noticed that I was gaining weight, and I noticed that it didn't really help that much. If anything, my periods were pretty much the same flow rate, and I still had cramps. They weren't as severe, but they were still there. I still didn't have any answers, and I still really wasn't getting a resolution of my symptoms. They were a little bit more manageable because I knew when my cycles were coming rather than coming whenever, 30, 40, 20 days, whenever they decided to show their head. And that just wasn't a really good option for me. So then my doctor suggested, well, let's go ahead and try something different. Let's try this Nuva ring, where you basically put a ring inside that releases hormones at the site. It might give you less systemic issues, but still give the same hormones that are synthetic and chemical. So I tried that for a little while. Seemed to be okay. I mean, as long as I put it in and took it out on time, I mean, I still had the same symptoms. I just didn't have to take a pill every day. So it was a little bit better, but symptoms were the same. No real change with that. Mood swings were the same. Weight gain was the same. Pain was about the same. And I would say it was about 2021 when I finally went to my gynecologist and said, listen, I'm not willing to take pills. I'm not willing to do this ring. I'm not willing to do all these things. I want answers. Why are my periods so painful? I've heard about endometriosis, where basically you have a cell that is causing more issues. It's bleeding more frequently, and you can have it pretty much covering your whole entire pelvic organ system inside, and that could be why your periods are more painful. I'm like, I still don't have answers. Nobody's done any imaging. Nobody's done any testing to find out what's really going on a deeper level as to why I'm having this pain and why it really hasn't improved and really hasn't changed much. So finally this doctor said, well, you know what, let's do some ultrasounds. Let's figure out what's going on. So I was on break from college, and it was just a small break. I only had maybe a couple days that I was going to be in town. He said, well, let's go ahead. He's like, we'll have you come back tomorrow. We'll do some ultrasounds and we'll see if we can find out what's really going on. So they did this ultrasound, and of course, I kind of had an idea about what I was looking at when I was looking at that ultrasound screen, but when you see your ovaries and the tech is telling you, hey, those are your ovaries, and you're looking and you see cysts around both ovaries, severe cysts. My first thought was, is that cancer? Like, what are those blobby ball things on my ovaries? Like, I know those shouldn't be there. Those should be smooth. What's going on? And the tech said, oh no, those are cysts. And I had been told previously that I had a cyst that had possibly burst. That was causing a lot of pain, but I had never actually looked, and I had never seen a picture of ovaries that were completely covered in cysts like mine were. And the tech said, well, we'll have you talk to the doctor after we're done here, and he'll just kind of give you some preliminary findings as to what's going on. So I sat at his office, and I sat, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. I was sitting there, and of course, the worst case scenario was going through my mind, like, oh my gosh, I have cancer. What's going on? These cysts are so bad. Are they going to have to take my ovaries out? You know, my one big dream when I was younger was that I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a lot of kids. I wanted to have a large family, and I knew that these cysts were going to complicate things, but I still don't really have any answers. And I was hoping that this doctor would be able to not only tell me what was going on, but help me figure out a solution to get things working again so that I didn't have to have surgery or something like that. So as I'm waiting, all these things are running through my head, and I feel like I'm going crazy, and I'm on the verge of tears, and I'm upset, and there's nobody there with me. I was just there by myself. And the doctor came in. He didn't even sit down. He just walked in, kind of stood right by the door. He was probably in a rush, had a million patients scheduled. But he told me, he's like, well, you know, it looks like from the ultrasound you have cysts on both your ovaries. They're covering both ovaries. They're pretty small. Doesn't look like we need to do surgery. But likely this is probably PCOS. I'm like, what's that? He's like, polycystic ovarian syndrome. He goes, so, you know, don't worry about it. You know, we'll watch everything. And when you want to have kids, we'll probably have to put you on some medications to help you get pregnant. And then he tried to walk out of the room. And I was like, whoa, buddy. And I got in front of him. I said, hold on. Can you talk to me a little bit more about this? Like, what does this mean? Is there anything I can do to help with this? He was like, well, with PCOS, you know, some people have issues with blood sugar. Some people have issues with hormone imbalance. Some people have issue with these cysts, and some people have issues with weight gain too. And not everybody has all those symptoms, but, you know, most of the time we just wait. And that was all he really told me. And then I said, well, is there anything I can do with nutrition? Is there any studies or anything done on this? And he goes, well, there's this couple out on the East Coast, and he gave me their names. He wrote it down on a sticky note. He's like, they talked about something with, you know, changing your diet and something with balancing your blood sugar more to help with it without medication. And that was it. That's the only information he gave me. He goes, okay, we'll see you next year for your pap smear. That was it. And I was kind of just floored. I mean, my life literally changed. I basically got told that, number one, you have cysts on both your ovaries. There's something abnormal going on. I don't really have answers for you. I can't tell you why. I can't give you any resources, but bye. Like that was it. Basically being told that I would need to be on medication if I ever wanted to have kids. And he didn't go over any information. He didn't give me any resources, nothing to look into. So of course, right after that I went home, and we know Dr. Google is dangerous. Dr. Google tells us all sorts of things that are scary and not always the best information. So I went home, I Googled it. And of course, after doing more research and looking into some research journals and things like that, it kind of turned pretty scary, because with PCOS, you have not only higher risk factors for developing cancer and developing endometriosis and all these other complications. A lot of times it's associated with insulin resistance, with severe hormone imbalances. From the research that I was seeing, if you do get pregnant, your rate of miscarriage is really high. And the possibility that you have an ectopic pregnancy also a bit higher since your body's not quite ovulating properly, if it is ovulating at all. And I was kind of floored, like there's got to be another way. So I was back in school, and there was one of the doctors that taught in our school that did a lot of functional medicine, and he talked about hormone balancing and looking a little bit deeper in this functional medicine. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to see if I can set up a meeting with him and just kind of get his take on things. So he gave me a couple things to research, and he said, if you want, he's like, really it comes down to figuring out what is going on. So he ended up recommending I come to the office, get some lab work done so we can really figure out what was happening and what we needed to do to balance things out. And I had this lab work done, and my progesterone level was like bottom of the barrel. There was nothing there. Normally you have your estrogen and your progesterone try to balance each other out. My progesterone was like non-existent. My estrogen was crazy high. Estrogen dominance was going on. And, he talked to me about some dietary changes I could do. He talked about some supplementation I could do to help improve my progesterone levels. He talked about dietary changes and things that I could do to really get a handle on the situation. So if I did get pregnant, and I could actually, number one, normalize my cycle so that they were coming regularly, but making them less painful, working on blood sugar balance and weight loss, and working on my mood so that I was a little bit more stable. And I thought, well, this is kind of neat. I need to know more about this. So over the years, between chiropractic school and also practice, I started researching more and more and more. And I found out there's so many women out there that are dealing with the same issues. There's so many women out there that have abnormal periods and painful periods and cramping and issues, and are basically being told they're crazy or that it's fine, it's normal, when it's not at all. So one of my biggest passions is for women that are trying to, number one, normalize their cycles, or trying to figure out what's going on with their cycles, why they are irregular, or why they're coming very frequently, or why they have heavy bleeding, or why they don't have any bleeding, or why they have clotting and browning and hormone mood swings and all these other issues. There's not really anybody giving answers out there. So I realized that this was kind of a group of people that I could identify with because I'd been there. I know how frustrating it is when it takes literally almost 10 years to figure out what's really going on. When you've been put on medication after medication with nobody even looking to see what the problem is and finding out what's really going on, it's very frustrating. Especially, like I said, if you want to have a family and you're basically being told that you can't without medication and it's not a big deal, and even though you know that you've been dealing with this for years, and it is a big deal because it does affect your life. So for me, like I said, for holistic healthcare and functional medicine, my biggest passion is helping people figure out what is really going on without needing to take lifelong medications, and how do we fix this issue and help our bodies heal so that we're not on medications forever, so we're not dealing with these symptoms forever, so we're not just waiting until we're ready to have kids to do something about it. We can start today. Once we figure out what's going on with your hormones, or once we figure out what's going on with your blood work, or once we figure out what's going on with digestion, we can actually come up with a plan to step by step correct it, fix the things that are contributing, and literally from the top down work on improving the issues, whether it's an adrenal issue or a digestive issue, so that everything downstream from there starts working better, starts healing, starts functioning better, so that we can get regular periods, we can get normal bleeding, we can get less pain. If you're having digestive issues, we can actually get some of the pain in the stomach or the heartburn under control. We can get the bloating under control. We can balance out and get normal bowel movements that are regular, so we're not tearing ourselves up or feeling miserable all the time. So that's really why I have been passionate about becoming a holistic healthcare provider and a functional medicine doctor, is because of my issues. And I just see a lot of times, especially in traditional Western medicine, that they're not really looking at why we have the issues. They're looking at just managing symptoms. So if you have painful periods, put you on birth control. When we actually want to have kids later on down the line after being on birth control for years, you don't always realize it, but it may take 6 months to get a normal cycle. You may have had so many issues and that birth control actually made it worse that now you really don't have much to do with that. So like I said, I'm really passionate about helping people to, number one, get answers, but also come up with a plan to balance things out so that they have actual results and they know what we can do in our office to help, and also what they need to be doing on their own to balance those things out for long-term relief. So that's part 2 of my story. Like I said, I just felt there was a need, and I felt like it wasn't being fulfilled. So I wanted to make sure that more women that were dealing with issues like mine aren't being told they're crazy, aren't feeling like they are weird for wanting to feel better. Not just, I'm ready to have kids, let's do something about it, but throughout their life, we want to have good cycles, good function, good digestion, good mood balance, all of those things. So that's why I'm here. So if you need my help or you want more information about what we can do, you can check out our website, freedompeoria.org. We also now have lab testing you can order online, and there are kits that ship directly to you. I also have some available in the office, and I will literally sit down with you going over what the results mean, what you can do nutritionally, lifestyle change-wise, supplement-wise, and how we're going to get you better so that you're not on those things forever. We want to fix the issue so it doesn't keep coming back. So again, thanks for tuning in this week and listening to my story and some of my experiences that have spurred me to be where I am today. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.